You don't have to chant it in Pali. You can chant it in whatever language you want. For example, you can chant it in English. Head, hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinew, bone, marrow, kidney, heart, liver, vitreous, spleen, lung, bowel, entrail, gorge, dung, brain, bowel, phlegm, etc. So there are two ways you can do this chanting. One is to chant it slowly. If you chant it slowly and then you contemplate one by one. And the other way is to chant fast. When you chant fast, it keeps your mind concentrated. It's a samatha practice. If you chant it slowly, you can consider it as a vipassana practice. So, and then also to contemplate on the various types of corpses that your body will turn into one day. And also the four elements that comprise your body, the four characteristics of your body, earth, fire, water, wind. And then secondly, to contemplate your feelings, arising and passing of your feelings. Feelings arise when there is contact at the six sense doors. When you see something, a feeling arises. When you hear a sound, feeling arises. When you smell, taste, touch and think, feeling arises. Generally these feelings arise and pass away very fast. But sometimes when we are attached to it, we cannot let go, then the feeling persists. For example, if somebody says something to you that you don't like, you get angry. When you get angry, you think about it, and you keep thinking about it, and that anger persists. Otherwise it should just go away. So, but the Buddha said there are two types of feelings, bodily feelings and mental feelings. Bodily feelings comes from bodily contact, and mental feelings come from mental contact. So, for example, somebody says something to you and you get angry. The sound that you hear is gives rise to a bodily feeling. But when you get angry and you start thinking about it again and again, then the mental feeling arises. So if you keep thinking about this, what is unpleasant that you heard, then this dukkha, this anger and this dukkha persists. So at night when you go to sleep, you keep thinking about it, you cannot turn off this computer, you cannot sleep. So you have to suffer for it. The Buddha says there are two types of suffering, mental suffering and bodily suffering. The Arya, a noble person, only has bodily dukkha, bodily pain. Bodily pain nobody can avoid, which means growing old, becoming sick and dying. But mental suffering, the Arya does not have, because the Arya understands the way the world works. Whatever happens, he accepts it. That's the way karma, vipaka is going, is turning. There's nothing you can do about it. You can only try to change the future. So, because the Arya accepts things as they are in the world, so he does not proliferate, he does not think so much, and so he does not have mental dukkha. The ordinary worldling has the bodily suffering as well as mental suffering, because he keeps thinking. So the more you think, the more suffering you have. And this thinking proliferation of mind is very hard to control unless you practice samatha meditation. When you practice samatha meditation, your mind becomes more and more still, and you find happiness in that stillness. Even if somebody says something that is a reason enough for you to get angry, you don't want to get angry because you know you get upset. So if you have some strength of mind, at least you can control your emotions. If you don't have strength of mind, you cannot control your emotions. Your emotions control you, and then you suffer. So So there's feelings. And then third, we are mindful of the mental state. Wherever the thoughts and all that arise, you observe the state of your mind. When you observe the state of your mind, it's very important to ask yourself, what is your motive? Sometimes you think in a certain way, you ask yourself, what is your motive? Why do you think like that? Is it because of greed? Is it because of anger? Is it because of your ego? Then you understand yourself better. Then only you can change yourself. If you don't understand yourself, how can you change? So sometimes also your reaction, somebody says something to you and you feel in a certain way, then you ask yourself also, why am I angry? Then you realize most of the times you're angry because your ego cannot take it. When we are sincere in walking the spiritual path, sometimes we live with a good teacher. The good teacher will point out your faults. The Buddha said in the suttas that if you have a teacher that is willing to point out your faults, then don't leave him. Even if he chases you away, don't go away. Stay with him. It's very hard to find a teacher like that. But a lot of people cannot stand when the teacher criticizes the disciple. He cannot stand. What cannot stand is the ego. That cannot stand. I know somebody recently, a lady, just renounced to become a nun. Actually a close relative of mine. So she wrote me a letter. The first 6 months was a lot of suffering. She said she was in this strict monastery where very frequently she gets criticized. They are so strict, they are so fussy, you must do everything exactly the way they want. So you don't do exactly the way they want, they tell you off. So she wrote to me that many days her tears flowed. And there's one day when the tears flowed non-stop. But because she had a good understanding of the Dhamma, she knew it's just the ego that cannot stand. The ego getting a passion. And that's actually my own sister. So that's the state of the mind. Then the fourth one is to contemplate of Dhamma. This contemplation of Dhamma is the most important of the four contemplations. Why? Because the Buddha said in a certain sutta that there are 5 occasions when a person becomes liberated, becomes an arahant. One is when that person listens to the Dhamma and becomes liberated. Another one is when that person is teaching the Dhamma. Because when you teach the Dhamma, you have to contemplate the Dhamma, and before you can put it into words, you have to understand. So, teaching the third is when you repeat the Dhamma. During the Buddha's time, they had no books, so they had to repeat the Dhamma. The more you repeat the Dhamma, the more you understand, because it's in the local language. So it's the same nowadays as with studying the suttas. The more you study the suttas, the more times you understand. And the fourth is when you reflect on the Dhamma that you have heard. You reflect and you understand better. And only the fifth occasion is during meditation. So you see, out of the 5 occasions, a person becomes liberated. 4 of them have to do with the Dhamma. So that is right recollection. By the way, this right recollection is actually vipassana. In the Buddha's earliest discourses, vipassana was not something to do with meditation. It was not meditation. It was contemplating these 4 things. That is vipassana. Then that is samasati. And then samasati and satipatthana is a bit different. Satipatthana, my translation, is intense state of sati. Because there is a simile, there's some analogy given in the suttas on how to practice satipatthana. And the implication is that when you practice satipatthana, it is one pointed attention on one object unmoving attention